ask yourself, when was the last time that when you voted, you really knew the person, the name on the ballot? How well do you know them beyond some advertising on TV or on the radio or other social media? How well do you really know that person? Was there enough time, media time, that person had in order to present who they are, to get to know them a little bit better instead of just having these sound bites? So with enormous pleasure, I'd like to introduce you to Karen Hyatt. Thank you, Karen, for being on the show again. I'm very excited that you are running for the office, and we're going to be talking about you some more, and we're going to be talking about why you're running for the office, and also again the thing that I just mentioned, which is inviting candidates, other candidates, and incumbents to have a conversation between like human beings in a civilized manner instead of these debates, these adversarial attack platforms, these shows, this TV circus that we're in. So welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Adrian. I appreciate being back. It was fun the first time, and I'm enjoying this.
And first time when we talked about when you were collecting signatures, that's how we met.
Yep. And
we sparked a conversation, and it was. I invited you to the show immediately because I saw how involved and passionate you were at what you were doing. It was about collecting signatures for referendum to look at the tax increases in the state of Utah.
Mm-hmm.
And that was my opening to get to know you a little bit better, where we talk about Constitution and politics and how things used to be and how things should be and what is sort of like broken. But we had only a limited amount of time to kind of explore those topics. This time I want to focus a little bit more on that, since you're running for Senate in Utah, District 6.
Yep.
And what made you pull the trigger on this? What made you run this? Because I know you have your own business.
Mm-hmm.
This is nothing like you don't want to make a career out of this. So why do you want to get involved?
That's a great question. I asked myself that a lot at the beginning. Yeah, if I could choose, I'd just be home, growing my little bakery and playing with my little grandbaby, who's so cute that who would skip that in order to do this, or put that on hold to do this. The reason is, let's just go back to the referendum. So in collecting signatures for the tax referendum, it was called a tax restructuring bill. The point was, the argument was, income tax has to go to certain things in Utah per our Constitution. Sales tax, they've got more leeway on what to spend that money on. And they felt that they had plenty of income tax coming in, but not enough sales tax. Although it had increased, it hadn't increased as much as they would have liked. So they said it's an imbalance and we need to fix this imbalance. So they wrote this tax bill that increased food tax, gasoline tax, introduced taxes on services like essential services, towing, home security monitoring, I don't know how they arrived at taxing these certain things, but a lot of us just said this bill is terrible. The more I got into looking at the bill itself, I didn't just look at the summaries. I wanted to actually read what the bill said. So I dived into the 6,000 lines of this bill and found buried in there, here among this tax restructuring bill that was supposed to, increase sales tax and do all this, is some carve-outs for certain hand-picked industries weren't going to have to pay sales tax on their equipment. What? So it was just terrible. And I saw that everyone was just reading the summaries and nobody was digging in. And it's very hard to read legislation.
Right.
It's legalese. It is convoluted. It's indented 5 times, and you're just trying to struggle to parse it out. But I was doing it and found some of these disturbing things in there in addition to the obvious ones. So then I got involved and was collecting signatures, as you say. And at some point, then they started meeting, backing up. They passed this in a special session in December, just a couple weeks before Christmas. It was just an emergency session to do this. And so, we had to do this to collect the signatures right then. So fast forward to then, their regular session came around at the end of January. It goes from the end of January to the middle of March. And they started passing other things. They did repeal this. They saw the opposition to it and they repealed it. And some of them were very reluctant and said, you don't understand. This was so great, but fine, we'll repeal it. But you guys don't understand it. So that was a little insulting. And
what is it that they thought that
they said, no, you don't understand. We're just rebalancing this. But there was no talk of these little carve outs and there wasn't talk about the other 6,000 lines of it. So, yeah. So, the point is that, after looking at this, get my train of thought back. So
I'm sorry, I derailed you a little bit over
you're
there.
Fine. You're absolutely fine. But the point is that when they got into session and started passing other things, people were just still mad. Oh, look what they've passed now and this and that. And, we've got to vote them all out because 20 senators voted for this thing. I don't know if I don't think they had time to read 6,000 lines. I hope I didn't say pages earlier. It was 6,000 line bill. But there's no way they had time to read all of it and read the, after you make changes to it and resubmit it right there at that emergency session. I just don't think that many of them had a chance to read the entire thing through. But people said, we've got to vote them out. 20 senators voted for this out of the 29. We need to get them out of there. Yeah. And so I was waiting, let's see, and time goes on and I keep hearing we've got to get them out. And I'm thinking, well, who's going to go in? You can't just leave a vacuum,
right.
So I'm waiting for somebody to jump in. And finally, on one of the pages where the supporters were, the volunteers for the referendum would talk back and forth, I saw somebody say, I can't wait to vote them out. Come on, November. November. Oh, dear. And I realized that they're all thinking they're going to vote them out in November. Well, this process of voting someone out of office starts in February and March because of how our system here is in Utah.
Yeah, tell me more about that because I'm totally ignorant about it. And it's not, you're not alone. That's very, very common. And I started asking around, is this taught in schools? I don't remember my children ever. They grew up in Utah. I don't think they were taught how local elections work, how the political system works in Utah. How do you run? How do you get someone out? Right. What's disturbing to me is, and it's because our lives are just so busy and people just don't have enough time. Most people, some people do, but most people just don't have the time to research, to learn more about like who's running. So
it's not easy. And it's not easy. It's not like, oh, let me go to such and such.gov and find out how it works. No, you get little pieces here, little pieces there. I don't know of any site that says, here's how the whole thing works.
Right.
And so honestly, after this primary, that's one of the things that I want to do is just make a page that you can go there and understand the whole process beginning to end. So let's lay it out here real quick.
Yeah, so as quick as I can. Tell us more, just educate us.
Yeah, let's start from the beginning. Usually, and this is on a normal year, it was a little different this year because of the COVID virus, so it changed things. But social distancing threw a couple of wrenches in, but they did pretty well around it. So in March, normally, you would have caucuses, which are precinct caucuses, which are meetings with your neighbors. So your precinct or neighborhood meets together. They used to meet in someone's home. They've changed it in most times to meet at, say, a school, like a high school, and your precinct will be in this certain classroom and the others will be in here. Kind of a more central location, which that's fine. That makes sense to me. So you meet together as your precinct, whoever is interested and has heard about it. And again, that's hard to hear about it because if you're not already involved, who's going to tell you?
Right.
It's kind of word of mouth. So again, I want to have a central place where they can go and find out where do I go? What's the next thing? What do I need to be aware of? So you meet at your precinct caucus, and any of these neighbors can stand up and say, I want to be a state delegate. I want to be a county delegate. I want to, different things. I want to be a precinct chair. I want to. So they have different jobs. A state delegate will go to a convention and vote for United States representatives, United States senators, and governor, and some other things. County delegates are, and again, county delegates will vote for state senators and state representatives. So Utah State, the ones that'll be here in the Capitol. If a Senate district comprises spans two counties, then that'll be a state delegate job. That makes sense, right? Because you can't do it at one county convention. But my district is all inside Salt Lake County, one single county. So it's a county delegate thing. So let me explain the county convention. So you, at your precinct caucus, you listen to them. They campaign, basically. They give 3-minute speeches and explain what they favor and why they think this or why they think the incumbent is doing a good job or not a good job. So you elect like-minded people right there, where you can talk to them. It's wonderful. And then a month later will be the county convention, which we had in April. And this time it was a virtual county convention, but normally they meet in a big building. And they vote for the different offices that are within their purview. So that would be including me. So Senate District 6. So you have the incumbent and me and anybody else that ran, which I was the only one. So that's all right. So they cast their votes for that. So these delegates that you've chosen locally and them, you send them to vote on your behalf at the county convention. All right. And the goal is to win at the convention by 60%. So not just a majority win, but they've built in a little buffer just in case delegates aren't quite representative of your average person. They've made a buffer in there, which is fine, also fine. So if you can win the county convention by 60% or more, then you will be the nominee in November. And I should have said at the beginning that I am talking about party conventions. These are party conventions. So I am running as a Republican. The Democrats hold their convention and other parties hold conventions. And independents can also be on the ballot. They just have to collect signatures to get on the ballot since there's no convention for an independent.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, that makes sense.
Right. So if I had won at the county convention by 60%, then I would just be on the ballot in November against a Democrat and a Constitution party and a Green party and any independents that run. Okay.
Is there a limit to the number of candidates from either party to go on the ballot?
So in November, there'll be one nominee for each party. Mm-hmm. Gotcha. But there can be multiple independents.
Right.
So so in this case, Wayne Harper, the incumbent, he got 54% of the vote, and I got 46. So neither of us got the 60% threshold. I was 6 votes away from getting a majority, and 19 votes away from getting the nomination, getting the 60%. So darn it, but that's okay.
So really, every vote counts.
Every vote really counts. There was only 170 county delegates, so yeah, just a few votes counts a lot.
Wow.
And then only 144 of them or something voted, participated. So you had a lot.
It suddenly becomes like so real when you have these like individual votes because you think like countrywide. It's like then
I'm just in a big pool of
right.
But this is really
So this is really important.
It is important, and usually when people are running as delegates in those precinct meetings, it's because they've seen something that they want to change, or they are involved, or they understand something. So it's really good because, like you said, most people don't know, they don't wake up and say, let me look at my local school board and see what they're doing today, but then some people do. So they're very involved. So that's wonderful. I love representative government at every level, and that way you can go to your job and you can hire someone essentially. Please be the watchdog. I think like you, please go and be the watchdog for me. It's wonderful. Not that you don't check them every once in a while, certainly, but you don't want to have to do their job for them constantly, right? And check every bill and tell them how you want them to vote on every single bill, or else you're just doing their job. So right now, since neither of us got the 60%, it goes to a primary. So it'll be, in my case, a Republican primary election. It'll be on June 30th, and that is where the decision will be made. You can't wait till November. If everybody just waits till November, the incumbents will just stay in forever.
Is it still 60%?
No.
At that point, it's just majority for the primary?
For the primary, just over 50%. and that will be the nominee. And so it's a good system. I will throw this in because you need to know this. I have described how the system was for years. A few years back, they did, and that's a whole nother can of worms. They did pass a law, actually. Parties and state government shouldn't really be that intertwined, but they are, and the government pays for part of the party expenses for primary elections, which I don't really agree with that either. So they have become entwined for various reasons. So they were able to pass a law that said, by the way, Republican Party, if a candidate doesn't get the 60, if the candidate doesn't even reach the 40%. Okay, so let's say that I had won 60% of the vote at the convention, and I'd be the nominee normally. Well, there's a little clause now that says, P.S., that other incumbent or challenger, whoever who didn't even get the 40%, could actually collect signatures enough to be on a ballot and have to have a primary after all.
Really?
Okay.
Wow.
Now, one good thing about it is you have to decide that well before the convention. So you can't find out that you lost by a lot at convention and then gather signatures. You have to decide that beforehand. So that's good. And there's some delegates that say, I like our convention system, and if a candidate says he's going to collect signatures, then I'm not going to vote for him. So and I do respect it, and I didn't register to collect signatures. I wasn't going to. If the convention delegates say no, then we're done. And and also Senator Harper, who's in the seat now, he did not either. He also didn't. So neither one of us were going to collect signatures and go around the delegates that way. So I'm happy about that. It was a nice, play fair kind of thing. But there's a lot that did in other districts. The incumbents are still collecting signatures to get back on, or the challengers too.
So the next step is the primaries.
Yes. Whew, that was a lot. So I hope that was clear. Anyway, so next is the primary election, June 30th, and that will be open to all registered Republicans for this particular convention, or for this particular primary, sorry. And you can, if you're not registered as a Republican, you can do that now. I'm not sure what the window is. You have to do it so far before the vote. You can't walk up that day and say, I want to re-register today as a Republican so I can vote. You have to do it ahead of time.
We'll put some links in the show notes in terms of where to go and find out some.
And that's on my website. There's elections info on my website, and if you go there, you'll see where it says, if you're not sure if you're registered as a Republican, here's how, or if you want to register, here's where you can go. So it's all there.
Right. And for those who are not watching this, your website is KarenForUtah6.com.
So Karen, we're in District 6.
FOR for Utah6.com.
That's it.
And that's where you can find out more information for those who are listening to this.
They can email me at KarenForUtah@gmail.com. That works. So anything.
Great.
And that's all on the website too.
Great. Well, let's get to know you a little bit better for the audience.
And now, who would want to go through all that?
Right.
That I just
so
described?
Why?
What is wrong with me?
The big question is the why, right? Why are you doing this? Other than getting involved with collecting the signatures for the referendum, to change the law on the tax increases. Why are you taking time out of your life, since this is not something that you want to do as a career? You don't want to become a career politician. You have your own business and you have your own life. And what are some of the motivations? Why is Karen doing this?
Great, thanks. And that's funny. And when you say you don't want to do this for a career, don't you think every person who's ever run probably said that? This is the hard part, is that, I say that and people go, yeah, sure you don't, but I don't want to. And one of my first, I'm constantly keeping my eyes open for a like-minded person that can take my place in 4 years. Already, I'm already thinking, okay, you could probably do it if you're ready in 4 years.
But what makes you different?
But what makes me, why do I want to do it for this 4 years thing?
Right, and because I see how a lot of people are they may be like, all right, I just want to go in because I'm upset with something that bugs me. This is a broken system, whatever motivates them, right? They're going in and they're like, wow, this is a cozy job. I can just kind of do this forever. And then you have career politicians. Whereas this, our system wasn't originally set up that way. It was supposed to be kind of like you go in, you serve the term, and you go back to your families, your businesses, and and new blood comes in or what have you. And it seems like we have overwhelming political system that's just kind of, people are just staying in it.
Yes. Even back, even at the federal level, boy, back when they passed TARP, in 2008, and I mean, congressional approval ratings were in the teens. They were at rock bottom lows. And yet, re-election rates were still in the high 80s, low 90s. What do you say about that kind of disconnect where I'm very unhappy with Congress, but I'm going to put them right back in?
Well, so I'm going to jump in right because this is a point where I believe that people just don't have, well, A, it's the time, right, to research your candidates. And then two, you just get snippets of whether it's a candidate that wants to replace an incumbent or just an incumbent. It's a familiar face. If they haven't like egregiously screwed up by doing something really bad, that's like right now is going to really, you got to retire. This is a no. The candidates just don't have a platform typically to talk, unless they have some kind of a financial backing that puts a lot of big money, so they can buy advertising time.
Right.
People just don't have enough time. But a forum
where they can say more than a 30-second soundbite.
Right. Exactly. So that's my theory, and that's why I'm doing what I'm doing with this over here. I want this to kind of spread where more people either talk to candidates, podcasts, video podcasts, and so people get to know these candidates better.
That's excellent. And also understanding how elections work. Yeah. Because I think what was happening at a local level, like, I can't wait till November, I think that happens at the federal level too, where for president, you're thinking, I'll vote in November. That's not where it happens. It happens back in the presidential primary. That's where you have a variety of candidates to choose from normally. And then
that's the time when you should learn about them.
Yes, to get to vote for who you really want in there then. And that's who will be on the ballot for your party in November.
Right.
So whether you're Democrat or Green or Constitution or Republican, whatever, you are picking your candidate way back in May and June, when these primaries are held, not at November when it's already
been decided. There's already a name and you just...
It's already done by then. Right. You don't just have, I disrespectfully always talk about how you have CRUD 1 and CRUD 2 to choose from in November. And that's not very nice, but I'm afraid it's kind of the case, is often the case. So if you want someone that's truly different or really agrees with you, you've got to look for them early on in the year.
Right.
And nobody knows that. So
with that, I'm sorry to hijack this for a second, but let's go back to your why.
So why am I doing this? So that was a big part of it, the tax referendum and realizing that people didn't understand how to get on the ballot. They didn't understand how to make this change. If you're unhappy with how it's how the Senate's voting. I focused on the Senate because in our House here in Utah, the House of Representatives, there's more discussion, there's more, kind of uneven votes or balanced votes. In the Senate, I attended several sessions this year and was shocked to see bills just pass 28-0, 29-0. We have 29 senators, 27-0, 28-0, just constantly. And I thought, none of you have a problem with this bill. Not one of you thinks this is not a good idea. And not every bill, but lots. I think that first, if you go to the government, the legislature website and look at I just casually looked through the first 25 at some point, and 24 of them passed unanimously. And the last one had 2 nay votes, I think. But it was just shocking. I thought, what is going on here? What makes everyone vote for this in the Senate? I don't understand.
Maybe those bills are just so good.
They're so good.
And so perfect.
Sorry for laughing. Yes, that's a possibility. I don't think that's likely. So, how many 500 new bills and that's not unusual. Every year we get several hundred new bills, and they'll say, oh, well, a lot of them are just housekeeping bills just to bring wording in line with other things that are already on the books. Well, that's fine, but I don't think the vast majority of those are that. So what are we doing passing hundreds of new laws every year? Did we need hundreds of new laws? Can you think of something that we need right now? So that was disturbing. And it seems again, I'm not in there yet, and I'm anxious to see what is really going on. But I know for a fact that there's a lot of, well, I'll vote for your bill, so you'll vote for mine later.
So
and that's unacceptable to me.
Right.
That's completely unacceptable to me. That is not why I sent my senator or representative up there, just to play, just to do that, and, quid pro quo and all this. That's not your job. Your job is to read this thing and say, is this the proper role of government or not? And if it's not, I want you to vote no. I don't care what the other 28 do. And so that was super disturbing. And actually there was a come and meet your senator day, meet your legislator day, I should say, up at the Capitol. And I happened to be there on that day. And so kids were up there, classrooms were up there. Well, I heard a report later. And this one class, and it was high school kids, so they were older kids, but they had gone to meet their legislator. And they were talking about how bills get passed. And he literally told them, well, I have to support my colleagues' bills so that they'll support mine. And he just threw that out. Like, it wasn't even this quiet, under the table, back door. He just said that as if it was normal. And one of the kids says, even if you don't agree with it, and he sort of, yeah. And so, that kind of thing is alarming. It's alarming when it happens, but to be open about it.
Right.
I don't want them to be quiet about it. I don't want them to do it at all, but to just treat it like that's a normal thing.
Well, what is that a symptom of? Do you think it's because people are just so disinterested in politics and they just kind of let it be and happen on its own, that they are just so comfortable even sort of saying this out loud and saying like, well, this is just how it works.
I don't know. I don't know what's the motivation behind it. I really don't. If it's a good bill, it should stand on its own. Right. Now, I realize that's a very empirical way to think about it, and not everybody does that, and there's a lot of emotion that goes on into bills, and, we need to help this group of people or that group of people. But I am really about the rule of law, like the proper role of government. If it's not government's job, back off and just let's not write a bill about that. So I don't know.
Where do you draw your strength to be like that, to be about the rule of law and not just like, hey, we need to help everyone and fix everybody's problem and
I have a lot of faith in people. We can do a lot on our own. We're capable. We're capable of providing for ourselves. Not every time, but government's not the first place that I look. If I have encounter a stumbling block in life, I don't look to government first because they don't have a good track record, for one thing. And principles, where your friends can help, your family can help, your church could help, at the very least, localized help. Even if it does turn out to be some sort of government program or something, at least let's get it as local as possible so that people can be aware of it and see where the money's going, not at the state, certainly not at the federal level. We have to get the power way back where it belongs locally so that we can be more aware of what's going on with our money and our taxes. Every tax dollar that is collected is collected essentially at gunpoint. Every time you pass a law that requires money or a tax raise, you have to remember that ultimately that is at gunpoint. Because if you don't want to pay it, you will get fined. And if you don't want to pay the fine, you will be jailed. And if you don't want to be jailed, you will have a gun pointed at you and you'll be taken off to jail. And that is really what's going on. And I know it feels nice. Like I want to, let me throw this in there. The legislature last year allocated in their omnibus bill, their giant spending bill for the year, there was $1.5 million in there for it was going to be an addition to the U of U. It is an addition to the U of U campus, and it was going to be my friend calls it the Orrin Hatch Center for Self-Aggrandizement, which isn't very nice, but it was a building to house his papers, and that he would visit there and come there and be able to tutor people on how to be involved in politics. And I just thought, what in the world? And the whole thing was like a $40 million project, but what the newspaper put it the legislature donated $1.5 million towards this. Donated?
Where did they get that from?
Donated. You can't donate money when it's not yours and it's not theirs. So they take it at gunpoint and then donate. That's just wrong. So that whole mentality. So there's a little insight into what's going on. That's how they're looking at it. It's a donation,
Right.
and they're forgetting how they got the money in the first place.
Gosh, I'm getting back into politics, Karen.
I'm so sorry. No, and you know, things don't have to be. Mostly, what I find, so many people like you, that I don't want a part of it because I'm not partisan like that. I'm not angry at the other guys, and I'm not angry at the other guys. You know, I get really upset when people say, "Oh, we're going to lose this seat to the Dems" or something like that, and that's just so insulting. As if just because you have a D, you're this whole kind of person. I already know who you are, and I don't like you. I think that's ridiculous and sad, and I don't agree with it. You will never hear me say anything like that.
One of the biggest problems that I have with politics is that we have this sports team mentality as a nation, and it trickles down and permeated to every level, where we just have this mentality of my team, my party, your team, your party, and as if the truth was only to be beholden in one of those camps. Right. It couldn't exist. It's mutually exclusive. It couldn't be here and there. It couldn't be that these two camps or more parties, independents, could really get together and talk things out and just go with what makes sense. Mm-hmm. And it's well, you've mentioned that, in that example that you mentioned, which is, well, I support my colleagues because they will support my thing. So it's, again, that quid pro quo. It's not that the bill or the law or the effort should stand on its own merit. It's more of this, again, and that's why people are disgusted with it. That's why people are just so disillusioned. They're like, hey, look, they'll just do whatever they will do.
So I'm not going to vote because it doesn't seem to make any difference.
It just makes sense.
And that guy said he stood for all these things that are in his party platform, and then he votes completely contrary.
Right.
That is very discouraging, and I totally get it.
It is.
I totally get it.
And hence, I believe that through platforms like these podcasts, where we can have on the record these long conversations where we get to explore things, and it's not like I want to put you or anybody else on a spot and like, all right, Karen, fix this. As if I would say, like, all right, you have a magic wand, we have this kind of issue over here, just go and fix it, right? No, it's going to be a process, but the process should be across multiple, whether it's parties or it should be a process where things get worked out and not in these silos of party or these groups of people that are controlling it. Like, hey, my idea is better than yours. You couldn't possibly have an iota of a good input where we could come together
right.
and have and so I believe that if we open this conversation, create these platforms, or inspire others to do the same thing in the country where people will talk, incumbents with candidates with other candidates, and have this conversation and have the people listen to that and get excited about it, get to know these people a little bit better versus getting excited about some other show on Netflix that comes out. If you want to change, this is an opportunity to learn more, and I believe we could shift that. We could flip that script,
and it needs to be flipped, and it needs to be shifted. You can only do it one seat at a time, and it is. People are discouraged for all the reasons that you just said, and I get that. But that's really the best way to change it, is to look one seat at a time and not say, well, he voted badly on these, but I don't know. I don't trust that somebody else will be any better. That's not a solution. I don't think that's a solution. If someone gets in and has shown that they're not on the same page with you as to the proper role of government, the least you can do is give somebody else a chance, right? Maybe they will be just as bad, but you've already vetted the one that's in, and you can see his votes or her votes, and I'm using his as a neutral pronoun. I'm still of that camp, okay? But anyway, there's the votes that they've taken, so you have their record, and you can look at it. And if you look at it and find it wanting then give the next person a chance.
Right.
And the worst that can happen is they also don't get it. But with any luck, some of us who really understand the proper role of government can start to become the majority, and we won't get things passing 29-0. We'll get a little bounce in there and say, I have a problem with this bill. I'm going to oppose this. There's so many bills that are, they increase spending, and it just seems like a good idea, like someone ought to do it, but it's not government that should do it. And the more money we can keep, our budget in Utah is $20 billion this year, $20 billion, up $5 billion from just 5 years ago. What are they doing with an extra $1 billion a year? That's 1,000 million. There's just there's no excuse for this.
Right.
And so, could I tell you exactly where that's all going? Not yet. That's why I need in. I need access to everything. I need to look and see what they're doing and figure this out and be right there and say, what is going on? And I will stand up, and for right now, maybe I'll stand alone. Maybe the votes will be 28-1, 27-1 for a while, But in 2 more years, the other half of the Senate, so this year, half of the Senate seats are up. In 2 more years, the other half will be up. And maybe if somebody's in there saying, this is wrong, this isn't our role, maybe a few others will join, maybe they'll agree, maybe we'll get it down to 26-3, 25-4, and eventually in a couple of years, maybe we can get some other people in and who are also freedom-minded and small government and proper role of government, and we'll see a change. I would love it. So that's the hope. I don't have any fantasies that I can change all the, make sure no bad bills pass. I'm only one vote. But I can encourage others to get on board with the proper role of government and pare it down. And I want to see the budget down next year.
You're such a refreshing person with a refreshing opinion on this, which is, it's almost like you're untainted yet by this political machine. Yet, and I hope
that's funny that you would say yet. It's just it's hard to put any faith in what people say, because again, I can show you our Republican Party platform. It sounds lovely. It sounds like a libertarian platform. It's terrific. Pare back. Decisions should be local. Decisions should be in the hands of parents for schools and things like this. Taxes should be lowered whenever possible. Broad-based tax reduction, I think, is the term that's used in there. All these things, and you just don't see it. The budget just keeps rising and rising and rising. So
right, in part, the reason why I kind of sidestep from politics again is because that being just disenchanted with the whole process. You feel like everything is just the solution of the government is just to throw more money at a problem, right? Mm-hmm. And because as a country and most powerful country in the world, many could say we have the capability of just putting more money out on a federal level at least, right? And that's part of the problem of the whole mechanism of just being able to throw money at it instead of being like really prudent with it. And so the tendency is, inflation just keeps on going and everything just keeps on ballooning instead of kind of contracting when it needs to contract. And so I don't see, but then again, it starts with one person who can change something. And then there's going to be another person who's going to follow that person. And then soon there's going to be a team, a group of people and then suddenly there will be a majority, because suddenly those who are just bystanders will see them like, wow, okay, these people are actually making change, right? And
that's exactly the hope. And you will hear, the party leadership on all sides, how can we get people out to vote? Only, sometimes only 20% vote in a primary or whatever. How can we get them out to vote? What can we do? Well, for one thing, you can you can help them have good candidates to choose from that are different. I mean, who wants to vote when you think that the people you're voting, in between, they both feel the same way? Why should you cast a vote between two people who feel approximately the same way? It doesn't matter. Or why should you vote for someone who says one thing and does another? what's the point of going out and voting?
Right.
So it's hard.
And those
you
are
don't
the
have
perceptions to
right.
battle with.
Exactly. And nobody has a crystal ball right now. They can't foresee, oh, look, Karen Hyatt really does do what she says. I'm not in yet. I don't have a voting record yet. I do have, again, on my website, I mentioned this briefly, that, 9 or 10 years ago, there's party leadership called the State Central Committee. And they're a handful of leaders, 100 or so, if I recall correctly. And then of that, there's leadership for that little committee. So the State Central Committee is a relatively small, that's statewide, so just 100 people or so statewide that make decisions for the party. And one of the things that they passed, like I say, about 10 years ago, was to give themselves the power to override those delegates that I told you about at convention. So if the delegates, say, want to make a change in the party constitution, and they vote to do that by 2/3, well, a majority of this little committee could oppose that and make it not happen. So essentially veto power over thousands of delegates by this tiny, and a quorum, meaning the smallest group you can have and still have a vote be binding. A quorum for this committee was, I think, 40. So a majority of 40 would be 21. So literally 21 people could override the decision of 2/3 of these thousands of delegates.
Wow.
That was unacceptable.
Right.
And I saw that and went, wow, no. So I jumped in there and ran and got on to the committee. Because again, what can I do from the outside? So we got on the committee, and there's not a lot you can do from the inside, granted, but there was a few of us, there's a handful of us in there that wanted to return the power to the delegates. And, you do your best, but it's really hard if you don't have people with you. But that's my track record. That's my track record at least. So, hopefully people will feel that they can trust me and know that I'm going to keep my word. I'm happy to stand alone. It's not a problem.
So I have two questions. Let's get back to you.
Okay.
One is, what gives you strength to, clearly you have a very, very strong and resolute moral compass that drives you. But where do you draw strength in terms of like political righteousness or political compass? Like what, in absence of, because obviously there's going to be different situations and different scenarios that you have to cope with, but you have to have some kind of, what are your principles and what are the basis of those principles? How did you shape them? What shaped you, Karen, to be who you are in that aspect? So I do believe in God, and that's central to everything I do. Everything I do. I don't want to offend him. I don't want to do the things that are wrong in his sight. I want to do what's right. And I know he loves justice. And I know he loves individual effort. And I know he loves self-sufficiency. And that doesn't mean I can do everything by myself and don't need anybody. But it means I know where to turn for help when I need help. And so all those principles are godly principles. And they don't fail. They don't change. They're always in place. So that's number one. Number two is, you know what? I read the Constitution of the United States. It's beautiful. It's so smart. And I know you did, because when we talked the first time, you like neck deep in the details of it. And because I love it. It's not very long. The state, I never wanted to serve at the state level or local level, because so many decisions can be made, because you have a lot of leeway. At the federal level, you do not have a lot of leeway. It is very, very clear with this relatively short document what you can and cannot do at the federal level. It's easy to make those decisions. If a bill comes across and it has to do with education, the answer is no, because the federal government was never supposed to have any hand in education whatsoever. State government, whole nother story. Okay, how do we handle it? Do we want public schools? Do we want it? So there's a lot of decisions to be made here. It's a big job. But reading the federal Constitution, the United States Constitution is so brilliant, because these powers, every kid comes home and he's memorized the preamble. Well, good for you, cutie. But that's not the Constitution. That is why we wrote the following Constitution, right? They're separate. So I used to teach citizenship in the nation for the Cub Scouts. And
a lot of them had memorized that in school, the preamble, so they'd recite that, and that was great. And I told them, if any of you want to memorize Article 1, Section 8, and come to me and rattle that off, I will give you a dozen cupcakes. Like right off the bat, you got it. Because that is the meat of the Constitution. That is, here is what the federal government's allowed to do, period. And so it's beautiful. And you look at those and you're like, those make sense. These make sense. That those particular items would be countrywide, right? Nationwide. Post roads, just to throw one out. All right, if you need a legal document to get from California to New York, you don't want Nebraska saying, we don't really do mail here. Now that's not a problem today. And we have all kinds of couriers today. So, the argument could be made, do we still need federal mail system? But I think that at that time, certainly, and maybe still, that makes sense to have post roads be a federal thing to make sure that those legal and important things
it's
can get
impacting the whole nation.
It impacts everybody. You have to be able to. So just something like that. Weights and measures. You want a pound to be the same in Missouri as it is in Nevada, right? You don't want a Nevada pound of beef or whatever.
Right.
So there's so many things in there that make sense.
Right.
And then everything else, it should be local or state or individual. Mm-hmm. And sometimes we forget that. Just because the state can do something doesn't mean they should. A lot of things should be city or local or personal. Just individual people can take care of things. Voluntary solutions to problems. Church, communities, GoFundMes. Like, we have so many resources in 2020 that we just don't need the state saying, oh no, the arts need to be funded. We better do it. Why? Why are you paying for part of my, Tuacahn ticket? Why are you paying for part of my Hale Center Theater ticket? Just to name a few. And there are only some of them. It's just when we, especially in a year like this where people are hurting and we need taxes to be low, what are we funding sports for? What are we funding entertainment for? What are we funding all kinds of things for? And at the very least, again, make it a smaller. I have an idea. If I could wave a wand, if I could get in there and all of a sudden I knew half the Senate was going to vote with me, right, on my side, I would say, okay, all these things that we're funding, let's create a government website. Okay, we will run it for you. Super cheap to do. I'll run it for free. I don't care. And you can go there. If you go, I don't know, what good cause to donate to. Here's all the things that we used to fund. Go here and donate out of the goodness of your heart, Right. And I would donate to that.
So then you have an option instead.
Then you have an option, and you're not taking it at gunpoint, right? And but it's easy to find. So it's not like, oh, we're just gonna, not fund you anymore and go away when they're used to getting funding. No, it's here's a site for you, and everyone can come here and choose among all these things. Oh, I love that. Yeah, I'm happy to donate to them. That's great. I would donate to Hale Center Theater. I would donate to Tuacahn. I think they're wonderful. I just object at it being taken by force.
Right. My second question is, how are you not afraid of because in a way what you're proposing, although this is how it's supposed to be by, from the founding fathers, this is how it was supposed to be. The political machine evolved and grew so large that we have these powerful special interest groups that, there's money that just goes in, and then politicians who now become career politicians now yield to those forces, and they want them because now they want the money to, and the cycle continues. So I'm not saying it's impossible to change it, but that's why I kind of mentioned, it's
daunting.
It's daunting, and it's and I'm sure there's a lot of good people that went into the government with the intent of serving. But it just, that machinery just will grind you. That's why I mentioned, you're still untainted by that space, and it will take a lot of effort, and maybe you will be that one senator who will be
influential,
influential,
yeah.
and it will continue to build up that and change people's minds. It feels like herd mentality in a sense as well. That everybody voting on this, and I'm going to vote on this as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it takes that person who will question things, who will put spotlight on it, so that people will review and not just go with the flow of things, right? How are you not afraid of doing that? I mean, because it is, it's scary in a way.
Definitely, and it's daunting, and it looks impossible. It looks like an uphill, but that's okay. That's okay with me. I know it's right, and so I'm happy to stand for that. That's as simple as it gets. I'm happy to stand for that. I don't want to make enemies, and I understand that some of these positions inherently will put some people off, some lobbyists, some, right now, even what I've said today, I can't remember, the Utah Center for Culture and Arts or something like that. They're not going to endorse me, right? They're like, okay, not her. And that's fine. That's fine. Because I don't need that endorsement, because that's not who I'm trying to help. If people elect me, they're the ones I'm trying to help. They're the ones I'm trying to represent. I'm trying to represent their interests, protect their wallet, protect their freedoms, and keep government small. And when you know you're doing the right thing, it's okay. Everything else is okay. It doesn't matter, right?
That's why I asked you that first question, which was like, where do you get that strength and
that's
principles?
It. And will I know how to vote on every bill? No. So here's the deal. I need constituent input. Okay. Let me tell you a couple differences in how to serve as a legislator. One is you say, elect me, and then I'll do whatever you want. Whatever you guys want me to, however you want me to vote, that's how I'll vote. And so, I'll just put my finger to the wind, and whichever way it's blowing, that's what I'll do. My husband talked to a legislator many years ago and said, why did you vote for this rotten bill? It was lousy. And he said, well, you know what? I didn't like it either. But all the emails I was getting were saying to vote for it. So I did. And there it is in a nutshell. Because if I don't know who was emailing him,
right,
but if I have to keep track of all the bills and tell him how to vote on each one, then I'm doing his job, aren't I?
Right.
And I've sent him there. Why? Why did I send him then? It's representative government. I look at you and say, we're like-minded. I'm going to send you to be the watchdog. You go and vote for things that are good and against things that are bad, period. If 90% of the people, I'm not going to think of an example off the top of my head, but, if 90% of the people want me to vote for something that's going to raise taxes unfairly, I'm not going to do it.
Right?
Because those 10% that sent me there for the right reasons, I have to respect that. So I'm not going to legislate like that. However, that doesn't mean I don't need their input, because no one person can see all sides of an issue. I need input. I need help. If they have something to say, did you consider this part of the bill? Did you know it contained this? Did you read it carefully and see this little bit? Do you realize this line here is referring to this certain company and it's a carve out? Okay, those are useful. Like, I need that.
Right.
And so if I've missed something, of course that's possible.
Oh, yeah.
And so I need that. But once I understand it, I will vote the way I'm saying I'll vote today, which is for smaller government, for lower taxes, for local control.
So a lot what you're saying has a basis in the foundation and Constitution as the guiding.
Mm-hmm.
Why a Republican then versus being a constitutionalist?
Oh, that's a great question. If you and let me say real quick before people go, well, what does the U.S. Constitution have to do with state government? It has everything, because I believe that although the Constitution itself frees state governments to, it gives them a lot of leeway for how to make decisions on education or whatever they want. But it's a template, isn't it? It's a small government template. And just because you can do something doesn't mean you should, right?
Right.
So why Republican? If you read the Republican Party platform, again, it's wonderful. It has so many things in there. I brought a copy, but I won't pull it out now. But you can Google that quickly, just Utah Republican platform. And it is very small government. We recognize that the individual, people are the best decisions make the best decisions for their lives. We recognize that parents are best at making education decisions for their children. We want them to have choice in education. All these things are in there, which are they should appeal to everyone, really. Who doesn't want to make their own decisions for their children? Who doesn't want to make their own decisions for not only their children's education, but everything else about the child? Who doesn't want taxes lowered wherever possible? And it literally says that. We encourage broad-based tax reduction whenever possible. So the platform, what they claim to espouse, is spot on. And it should be for every party. Every party should espouse just about everything in there.
Right.
So that's why they're the closest. Their platform is the closest. I mean, the Constitution Party, they're great too. That's great. I could do that. But in Utah, not in Utah, in the whole United States, the Democrat and Republican parties have gotten control over the system. And like I said, that's a whole nother can of worms. The unholy alliances between government and the parties, that was never supposed to be a thing. Parties were supposed to be little private groups saying, hey, we've vetted these candidates, and if you guys, here's what we believe as Republicans. If you believe that too, then you're going to be interested in these nominees that we suggest, right? And that's all it was supposed to be. Just a very private organizations, not a part of government. And right now, I'm going to say this for a couple minutes. Right now, our Constitution is all but gone because of the parties. If I went through and redacted, blacked out everything in the Constitution that we don't do anymore, well over half of it would be black. It would be gone. I have to laugh when I hear.
I think we should do that. And just show
I think
people.
I will. I think I will. I keep meaning to do that one of these days.
You're just so diligent. I'm going to hijack this for just for a second. You're just so diligent with everything that you do in terms of like even when you were reviewing that bill, the 6,000 lines and tabulated subpoints.
You remember that?
Like,
yeah,
I remember
the
that,
online version of it didn't even have the
right.
subsections tabbed in a readable manner,
it's
so I had
like
to do
pages
that.
Shouldn't
You're
go,
so funny to remember that.
Pages should just go landscape because all these indentations that were in here.
There were five indents sometimes.
Right. And I believe that you, with that kind of scrupulous, attention to detail, you're just so qualified to do what you just said.
Well, I appreciate that.
I think that would be. I
appreciate that.
And I think that'll be fun for people to see as well, just because.
And you don't have to have any. I'm not special. Anybody can read this stuff. Mm-hmm. It's just the Constitution is in older language. It is a little bit hard. You do have to slog a little bit through some of it. But I mean, by and large, you can read it and you can understand it. But let me just throw this out. Even I have to laugh because I'll see these debates and people go, "Oh, the Electoral College is terrible. I think we should do away with it." And then I see the person, "No, the Electoral College is great. It's representative government that way. We should keep it." And again, because we actually don't have one anymore.
How so?
It's called the Electoral College. It's in name only, but so most states work this way. The whole point of the Electoral College was the state legislature would appoint or elect, however they wanted to do it, electors. Mm-hmm. And we would have 7 from our state. So we would have these electors go, and they would vote for the president. This prevents presidential candidates from just putting up the biggest billboard, and whoever sees it the most, that's who they vote for. Okay, so that's the danger of just a public vote. So these were supposed to be electors who could vet, just really similar to the delegate system that I explained. These electors can meet with the candidates, whoever they are. They could even vote for people who weren't running. I mean, George Washington didn't want to be the president, but they put him in, and he accepted. But that's how it was supposed to work, all right? And it wasn't supposed to be a public vote, and that's what people talk about when they say they like it. Yeah, otherwise you just get it's just a popularity contest, and we can't have that. So we need the Electoral College. Well, I agree, we do. But how it works nowadays is in Utah in November, right? We'll all go to the polls, and some people will vote for the Democrats, and some people will vote for the Republican nominee, right? And some people will vote for the other parties, and they won't get in because there's so few of them, all right? But they'll vote for the Republican and Democrat. If the Republican gets the most votes, okay, then a certain slate of electors, a certain group of pre-chosen electors will go who have already said, I will vote for the Republican candidate. If the majority of people elect the Democrat, a totally different slate of electors will go to the National Convention and vote for the Democrat. How is that different than a popular vote? It's not. It's not. It's a tiny bit different, but not significantly different. And even to make it worse, those electors must, by law, vote for the person that they're being sent to vote for. They're not at liberty to vote for anybody they want. And so it's gone. We don't have an electoral college as envisioned by the fathers. Nothing close. And nobody knows that. We don't really talk about it. And it's like I said, that's one place that's completely redacted out of the Constitution, is gone. So that's why we keep getting the same kind of candidates, because it's the parties that are choosing them, and it's not, electors aren't free to go, oh, I know a perfect guy that would be president and here and, spread the word and get him in. It doesn't work like that. Right. You're absolutely bound to vote for party nominees now. Right. And it's very painful to watch.
It is very painful. Gosh, switching topics a little bit. When you get voted in, because I believe you will, so I will just manifest it into reality. But on a serious note, what would be some of the first things that you would do as a senator in Utah?
Find out what our budget's going toward. Really, it's all but impossible to find out. If you Google, Utah state budget, I mean, you'll get all sorts of piecemeal things. Well, you won't get a thing that says 20 billion and here's a pie chart. Here's where it's all going. That, if it exists, I haven't found it yet, and I've tried hard to find it. So you have to put lots of papers together. You've got to look at this where they talk about the education budget. You've got to go here where they talk about, local, where do the, what's given back to, they collect money and then they give it back to school districts and to counties and things like this. And it's very convoluted. It comes in and then it goes right back out. Well, why is it going up there in the first place then? And how is it getting redistributed? And it's very complicated. And no, I'm not looking forward to slogging through all that. Right. But I'm going to. So that's the first thing that has to be done. And then each bill that comes up, I'm going to read through it and have a committee with me, that people like-minded that will fish through that for me and help me. Because, again, some of them are short, some of them are long, and there's no way to be an expert at every bit of it. Right. There are committees, there are Senate committees, because all the proposed bills that come in, there are just too many for every senator to read through. So the committees, this committee will read through the education bills. This one will read through the transportation bills. And if they approve of them, then they go to the Senate at large to vote on. Right. So it's rough. It's very rough. And you can't be an expert on all of it, but I will never vote for something that I don't understand. If I haven't either read through it myself or understand it thoroughly from people that I trust to explain, there is no way. You will never hear me say, well, I wasn't sure what was in it, so I voted yes. I think that's insane. If you don't know what's in it or you're not sure, the default should be no. I mean, that's just a baseline. I hope that you'll take the time to read through it. But if by any chance you haven't had a chance, for the love, don't vote yes, vote no as a default, right?
Right. I mean, we've all seen, even on a federal level, they have here's a new bill. It's 2,000 pages. I'm like,
Yeah.
No, none of you
None of
really
you
read
read
the whole
this.
thing because it's just not possible. It's
No.
like it's there's no way. Obviously, there's the support system. There's staffers and others who are. But then again, you are really not making that decision.
Well,
Others are making the decision for you, right?
And sometimes you just got to pass it to know what's in it.
Right. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. So simplifying and transparency, I think,
Yes.
are sort of like two things that I get out of
Absolutely.
out of your answer.
And local. Get the control out of the state hands and put it local.
Right.
I'm glad that some things aren't federal. State's better than federal, but local's better than state, and individuals best of all, right? Volunteerism is a great thing, and it's so doable now in 2020 when you've got GoFundMe's and you've got the internet to draw attention to your causes. There's just no reason to fund so many things at the state level.
And to be more efficient, I
Right? No overhead, no middleman. Everybody
faster.
knows that. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Probably more
and
transparent.
more transparent. Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
It's all you lean on technology where technology is good for
It's
it.
available. Let's make use of it.
Right.
It's fantastic. Yeah.
I wanted to take you back on another challenge that I see on this quest of changing people's opinions about the government. What would change my opinion is, maybe some help with understanding how things work, right?
100%. Mm-hmm.
That's one thing. Believing that these people who are voted in have our best interest in mind and continue to have our best interest in mind. And so some kind of better communication with people so people could feel like they are connected with it. And really, again, leaning back on technology, especially now with the pandemic and everything, how everything is done via, teleconferencing, right? You can do these things. I mean, it would be such a refreshing thing that, these politicians wouldn't be behind some kind of a, veil of the government. Like,
right.
Government business happening here, you're outside, don't peek inside, right?
Yeah.
But I think also a change of how people individually look at the whole governing process. How would that be changed? Because it seems like this flywheel that has this huge momentum right now is people don't want to get involved with it, right? Because they don't even believe it or trust it, or like it's just too massive of a machine. And a lot of people, let's be honest, a lot of people are enjoying this nanny state approach where I just give me entitlements, give me, so what you said and what you believe in, which is people should take the responsibility. People should take the accountability on their own. People should be able to make their own decisions. Parents are the best to care for their kids, right? As responsibility goes, for the most part. Obviously, there's going to be edge cases where people are not shouldn't be qualified to be parents, but that's taking a lot on for people to claim that back instead of like, this
so much easier.
Easier if you just take care of me, give me, right? Instead of take less from me and I will take care of me, right? Right? Because that's a counterpoint of that. That's a side, right? It's like, I'll just pay through the nose through my taxes, and you guys take care of me. And social programs and just give me. Yeah. The counterpoint to that is, or the opposite is, take fewer taxes from me, less taxes from me, and let me be responsible for my own actions and for my own well-being more.
Yeah, and
giving
your
me
neighbors,
the power, right?
And responsible for helping out your neighbors.
Right.
What I think is interesting is if you forcibly take money from me and give it to somebody who is in need. Okay, one part of the equation, I guess the person in need gets some benefit out of that, right? But what benefit did I get out of it? I didn't become a more generous person. I didn't learn anything about this. I didn't choose to do that. I get no blessings for my kind and generous offering. I'm robbed, right, of my chance to be a good Samaritan.
Right.
I'm robbed of my chance to be a little more godly, a little more responsible, a little more aware of people. So you just robbed me of that. And if I think that you're taking care of it and you've already, robbed my money and you're giving it to someone else, then I sit back, don't I? And I just say, well, the government's taking care of them, so I don't have to worry about it.
Right.
And that is the opposite of what we need. We want people to become more caring. Along the way, will you get miserly people who won't, tight-fisted, who won't help anyone? Sure. That's a small price to pay for seeing people in general become more aware of their neighbor and become more empowered and realize that they're able to help their neighbor and their family members. And that's so valuable. You can't put a price on that. It's so valuable to see your fellow man just progress and be a kinder person over time and realize how much power they have to help others. So we're really losing out on that when we allow government to take it from us and do it their way.
It's a humongous undertaking to revive that
yes,
empowerment in people.
Yeah,
because it's so easy for people to get used to these either programs or these social or these handouts. And I'm not saying, again, I believe in balance of things, and I'm not saying that there shouldn't be some programs and some things where nothing else will fill in the gap. But I also believe that given more resources that would be left with people,
mm-hmm.
I believe that most people are good people and they will help others. But if you take the means away from them, well, guess what? They will just take care of themselves and their families, immediate people in their lives, right?
Yeah.
But if they would have more, then I believe that they would be more generous. They would help out. You would have a strengthened social fabric of your neighbors helping out, because now if you have that extra, now you would seek, hey, who do I want to support? Who do I want to donate? What organization or what? But if you don't have that because it's already taken away, then that discussion is not even to be had,
right?
Because it's already done, right?
Yep.
You don't have those resources. So.
Exactly.
So you're outside of that conversation. Now someone else over here who may be influenced unduly by influence groups is going to make that decision on your behalf, and you're, like you said, robbed of that power.
Exactly.
So how would you, on that front, how would you...
How would I fix the economy? You have 30 seconds?
Yeah, you got 30 seconds. Yeah, that's my favorite line. That's what we have in these debates or these the space of political discourse, which is, let me give you an impossible question and give you 30 seconds to answer, soundbite to answer. But there is a beginning somewhere. I'm not asking you to solve it right now.
How am I going to solve it? But what will I?
Well, what would you do?
So what you said, education, right? People need to understand where their money's going, what it's being used for, where, how does this work? What is the budget being spent on now? And actually, what is the proper role of government? So I'm all about education. I just bought 50 of these little books. I won't go into it, but they are helpful for you to understand the bigger picture of what's going on in our nation. And I feel like it's a really valuable book. I actually wrote the footnotes for it. So it's an awesome little gem. So I just bought 50 of them. So if people go, why do you think this or that? I'm going to send them one. Here you go. This is why. You read this. Tell me if you don't agree. Understand what's going on. And then pass it to your neighbor so they can understand too. So I'm all about education. I am laboring under no delusions that I can make big changes as one person in our legislature. That's ridiculous. But like I said, I'm hoping to give others the courage to stand up for the same things, understand that they're not alone. When those bills pass 29-0, there have got to be some of them that are voting for these things that wouldn't, if they knew, they wouldn't be alone. So that's my hope. I just want to have your back. If you are wanting to vote no, but you're uncomfortable, you won't be alone. At most, it's going to be 27-2 if we both vote no.
Right.
Okay. And so that's all I can do, right? At the beginning, that's all I can do is vote correctly, vote for the proper role of government and limited government, and educate. And so, like I said, absolutely, I will have a website. I may change my campaign website to this website where you can go there and you can look at the budget and you can look at how people are elected and you can find out the things that I wish were so easy to find that I can't. And there may be sites out there that I'm not aware of course. I mean, you do a Google search and who knows what comes up these days.
Millions of results.
Mm-hmm.
Millions of results. Yeah.
So maybe there are some, and hopefully people will hook me up with them and send me links that I can look at. And if they're useful, they'll be included on mine. That'd be great. But I think that's the first step, right? Is educating, explaining the proper role of government and why it makes sense, why it's beautiful in the long run.
I can inject into that as well. I believe that sometimes it's even just creating a space where people can stand is all that's needed to start the ball rolling. Mm-hmm. So by having someone who will be that person who will be voting voting on the merits of the legislation and
good way to put it,
and driven by moral principles, and not only because of my colleague I'm going to support this because they'll support my bill and quid pro quo. I think that alone would create enough of space for others to join. And when there's two, there's three, and there was three, it just goes on. And I think that's how it starts. So sometimes just creating that. Two, and this may sound a little crass, but I believe that maybe there's a way of making politics a little bit more entertaining to the public. Maybe people are just not interested in it because it's just maybe not fun. When you throw things like budgeting and things, people are just eyes glazed over and they just don't want to deal with it. But maybe there is a way, and maybe media has something to do, but maybe some media can be somehow involved in this to make it more interesting, to make it that, because it matters. In the end, people think that they just have their own lives in this little space that they are in, and they think that, maybe my stuff is not affecting everything else. But in reality, everything is affecting everything else. And so if you create a environment in which people will tap back into that if I'll be more empowered, if I will have more resources to deal with, to have at my disposal, so then I could make change by voting with my dollars. If I support this group or that group or that group, then those will be the reins of change, so to speak, in the society. So I think that if people recapture that and start subscribing to that notion, they will feel more empowered, and then that change will kind of spread, I believe, faster than kind of just now just we'll do it on your behalf, and you don't take any responsibility, and
right.
Because what's happening on the other side of this, if we're not going to go back and tap into the personal responsibility of everyone, mm-hmm. and encourage them and inspire them to be that way, to be more responsible and will have more responsibility and being capable of making changes in their own lives, then the flip side of that is socialism, right? Where you have these group of and then just handout. And, we all know that it doesn't work. There's a beautiful quote by Margaret Thatcher who said, socialism works all nice and great until you run out of everybody else's money, right? And so, I think we just got so used to this nanny state where all these entitlements just come in and I think it's time to kind of recapture that and have that more of that personal empowerment of having people making their own decisions and making changes locally, because that's really what matters immediately to you, right? Yeah. It's your immediate environment. So that's enough. What I'm going to get off my soapbox on that account. But that's what I believe in. That's what excites me, as you can even hear in the tone of my voice.
Well, I like how you say it should be more fun, and that. I'm not sure fun, engaging, entertaining. Entertaining is not such a bad word. You should find it interesting, engaging, should grab you.
I kind of chucked it into fun, but underpinning that word, I didn't mean like fun, comedy.
I think
central.
You said entertaining. I think I put fun in your mouth. So I think
I'm thinking more of a engaging and interesting, in a sense that this could be almost like a pursuit, right? It's like a lot of people are problem solvers. They love either solving puzzles or dealing with things that, engage them. Yeah. Nobody loves a job that you're just monotonous and it's just the same thing every day, right? And so this could be a form of challenge where people could get into this, if, provided that there would be space for that kind of dynamic, right? I really do see that.
Right. I'm hoping to be able to distill bills down so that it's not in legalese anymore. I can explain, here's what this does, and put it into an understandable format to share with constituents, right? So that they understand what was in this bill. And even just simplifying it, you're more interested in it. If you don't have to slog through all these, a bill always has all these definitions at the beginning. This shall mean that, and that shall mean that, and that can be pages.
Right.
And then till they even get to the meat of the bill, which is a heretofore and per section, and you've got to look up other sections. And it's a lot of work, but it can be distilled down so that you understand what's in it without oversimplifying it, like they did with the food tax bill, right? They just called it a food tax bill, and all the summaries were like, oh, it raises this and this. And I'm like, you're missing so much more on here that was essential for us to understand, to really understand what the whole bill did. So that's a goal that I have. I hope to be able to do that well, to be able to distill things down well. But again, there are so many, just the sheer volume. I can't remember. I wish I could remember which founder warned against if laws are so voluminous or incoherent that they can't be read, then they're useless. That's widely paraphrased, but those words, voluminous and incoherent, and that is what we have.
Right.
Like all the bills are incoherent. It's really rough. So your average person just can't read them anymore because they've got all the lawyers that have to, say things exactly correctly. Right. I went through one. There was a bill that literally, what am I looking at? Because it had all these bizarre provisions, and it literally came down to, if you are giving the customer this pastry with a fork as opposed to not with a fork, well, that's an indication that it's to go, and so it's going to be taxed differently than if you don't have the utensil with it. Oy. So, stuff like that, that's just, it's going to be rough. And, this is why I'm not looking, I wasn't looking forward to this, and it took me a while to jump in. It took me a while. I didn't just say, gee, there's a problem here, I'm going to run. I said, gee, there's a problem here. Please don't make me run. I don't want to do this. And I just kept looking for who is going to step up. And when I finally realized no one was going to step up and it wasn't going to happen, it was painful. And I had some painful moments. And my husband said, I really think you should do this. And I said, but I don't want to. Look at this. If you saw my grandchild, you would just be so sympathetic right now. He is adorable. And he's just at that stage where he's imitating you, and he's so cute. And I would have him over to the house every day if I could. And that's what I'd like to do, and bake cupcakes, right? My cupcake business. That would be joyful. But it just really became apparent that I wasn't going to feel like I did the right thing if I neglected to do this. So and the good news is, as I jumped in and as I committed, I got enthusiastic, and I am so excited now. And I want to get in there. I want to advocate for, the bowlers, right, that run Utah Natural Meats and have so many legislative hurdles to jump over just to run their business. They're so sweet. They could sell their property for millions and just be done. But look what they're doing. Yeah. They're so sweet. And I realized I want to advocate for them up there. I want to advocate for all these people who lose their homes because property tax. There's so many people that I want to help, and I just want to stand for what's right on their behalf. And I'm super excited now.
I think what it takes is a person with the attributes that you have, and the I almost want to call it obsession with because that's really what you need to take it to the next level. Not in a negative sense of that word, but in a positive sense of that word, which is you're obsessed at, to get obsessed with getting into the trenches within that system and be such a huge force that people will actually want to change and be like that and kind of revive, because I believe everybody has that in them. Yes. It's just that this daily grind of this machinery that's kind of been going on and for so long that is just going along with things, and that's why we have, like you said, these bills that are passing without any opposition or any counter votes or any of that, which kind of is an indicator of like how bad things potentially are in there. Yeah. And with a little shameless plug that I want to get put in for Kristen and Shane Bowler from Utah Natural Meats, who I had over here as my guests on the show, and I admire and revere them. Like you said yourself, they don't need to do what they do, they are surrounded by developments. They could sell their property for gazillions of dollars,
gazillionaires,
and then just sit on a beach and just tan and enjoy their life.
Exactly.
They're doing it, and for those of you who are new to the show or haven't seen that episode, please take a look, watch that show too. It's a conversation with local farmers,
it's so good. Mm-hmm.
and it just gives you, like, we need people like that, and because they support local community, they provide healthy food, they are part of food security. We need more local farmers like them to build that fabric out.
Exactly.
But more details in that, so watch that if you haven't watched
that. It's so good. They're so smart, and they're so articulate, and they really explained why they're doing what they're doing in such a good way. Unbelievable people. It's I agree.
This is the last thing I'm going to say, and I'm going to people just watch that episode. It's what I really appreciated, and over, they do great work, and they work hard, getting up at 4 a.m. to milk a cows and all that, backbreaking. They don't have to. But it's how balanced they are in their opinions. It's not like when we were talking about things, raw milk, versus pasteurization and things like that. And I'm personally for raw milk. I love it. I've been consuming it for years. It's great. It's legal in Utah as opposed to New Jersey and Maryland and other states. It's so beneficial and all that stuff. But even talking to them, they weren't like, "Oh yeah, just raw milk and it's perfect and everything."
Shane was so measured and reasonable.
It blew me away. They said, like, look, he said, these large companies that have 10,000 cows, they have to pasteurize.
And they're transporting
this over. Transported, all these contamination points, potential contamination points. This is like the risk assessment and risk management of, like, they pasteurize it because they don't want to have, because they don't have that full control over the whole thing. And over here, when you have a local farmer who does that, and from a cow it goes from here to here, and it does
not need to be pasteurized.
It does not to be pasteurized. Everything is under control. And
he explained it so well.
It is just that just blew me away. I was like, oh my goodness, it was unbelievable. And that's why, like, I cherish people that, different perspectives to kind of open you up. And I hope that's what you're going to have in Utah Senate, where you're going to surround yourself with people, not only the yes men and to be politically correct now, yes women and yes people around you, but those who will challenge and will give you different perspectives and will bring up things, because that's what makes it stronger, when you have those eye-opening other perspectives that will shape what you do. And so I think that's all I have. I would love to
thank you for the chance to come and talk about this. This was great. I appreciate it so much. I love your attitude of let's just talk. Let's not attack. Yeah. You will never hear me attack Senator Harper. There's nothing, I have nothing against him personally. There's not a problem. It's the Senate in general. I want to change the atmosphere of the Senate in general. And he's just one of those 29-0 votes, He's just one of those 20-0 food votes. It's not anything against him personally whatsoever. And he always did a good job of getting back to me on email, and I will incorporate that. Like, I appreciated it so much that I'm happy to drop everything and make sure I email people back when they email me and things. So, no, there doesn't need to be any, like you said, submarine, torpedo. We don't need to torpedo anybody. We don't need to attack. Just let the ideas stand on their own. And I appreciate you letting me come and share some.
And so, on that note, I would love to extend an invitation to others from other districts in Utah, and invite them to this show, to this studio, whether remotely or in person over here, to start these conversations, these real conversations between senators, between incumbents, between candidates, for the sake of everybody else, for the sake of people getting to know you, getting to know your ideas, to changing this climate, to changing the space where it's this adversarial team sport winning, I'm going to win, you're in like opponents and all of that, versus may the best idea stand on its own.
Perfect.
And win, right? That's what
well
should
said. Yeah.
That's what should really be the drive.
And keep in mind that no matter what district you live in, if you know of a candidate in another district that you can get behind, go and make a donation. You know, most of us, you know, I have no big donors. I have no large donors. So all of my donations come in the form of smaller donations from individuals. So I mean, go to our websites when you find candidates that are like-minded and donate. If you're not sure about your job, donate $5. You know, if you've got a job that's going well, donate 20, donate more, whatever. But every $5 helps, really. So that's important. You know, I've donated to other candidates in other districts because I know every time we get a good senator in, that helps the entire state. That's going to change the face of the Senate. So I'm happy to support anybody, no matter what district they're in.
I'm so glad that you mentioned that. So I'm not going to end this yet because this just opened up a little channel that I want to cover. Because I think I see things connected. I see that if people get to know you, because these platforms like podcasts or video podcasts will kind of propagate, and more people, more candidates, and more incumbents will get on these shows and have these conversations. And through that, people will get to know them. People will be more apt and more. They will want to promote, sponsor you, like donate to the cause now because they know you, instead of having these larger, groups where PACs and interest groups, which
political action committees.
and because then there's that string attached, right?
Yes.
And that's for like, this is me, just my opinion. This is me just talking. That's why people are in this kind of disillusionment, because they're like, hey, these huge, interest groups are just controlling these politicians because they just, they're like. I'm going to get that whole money, aspect of it, right? Versus if we would have this distributed, and at what better time than now, where anybody can do it from anywhere, send donations, Patreons, click. PayPal, so click, and money is, and then people don't have these elected officials, and again. It's because they would get to know them, because they would get to know their ideas, because they would get to know their principles through this, because there is platform, there's enough time, and therefore they are like, wow, okay, I like this. Even like you said, different districts. I like what they're going to do over there. Exactly. If I have the resources, and you see how everything kind of loops
and
now?
not just financial donations. Those help. Those go a long way. You can't believe how much it costs for me to send out one mailer in my district. It's like $4,000 or $5,000 just to get a mailer to every active voter, active Republican voter. It's very, very expensive. So of course those are appreciated. But if people share, if they say, look, I found, Karen Hyatt seems totally aligned with me. Check her out. Look in here. Here's her website. They have no idea how useful that is. Like, that can spread so quickly for $0. Just put it on your Facebook page. Go to my page and share it on your Facebook page, or tell your neighbor. Tell somebody who hasn't been voting, because they are disillusioned. There's so many. If I could have a magical list of people who are disillusioned, I would target them. They always talk about, you need to target the active voters. I'm like, I want to target the people who don't vote because they're so done.
Right.
Because I know that I could spark a little something in them. So if I could get that magical list, those are the people that I would target.
Right.
So please, anybody who wants to spread this message, just do it by emailing your friends this link. There you go.
Spreading awareness.
Yeah.
Good ideas that will stand on their own, and people behind them that have principles.
Exactly. It's so useful.
Let's just close with if you want to. So we're going to provide all the links in the notes. Your website.
Great. Karen for Utah 6.
KarenForUtah6.com. And
KarenForUtah@gmail.com. And
check out more stuff on Karen's website. And if
my phone number's on there, they can text me, they can call me, anything they want. It's all good.
Time is of the essence. Primary search.
Yeah, so ballots will be sent out. The Republican primary ballots will be sent out the second week of June. So right now I'm concentrating on getting my signs on the busiest streets. So if someone wants to call me and say, you're welcome to put a sign in my yard, that's terrific. I like signs in small neighborhoods so that people can see that their next door neighbor that they know supports me. I also need them on the big streets so that people see it all the time. So it's not going to be a surprise when they open their ballot.
Right.
Who's this? So I want them to have seen my name a lot of times and understand that I've been running. Any help like that, we're going to be passing out door hangers. And that is a daunting, like I said, the mailers are so expensive. The door hangers are a fraction of the price if you don't have them mailed, right? So I've got volunteers that have committed to walking their neighborhoods and putting door hangers out. So that would be extremely helpful. All of those things are so, so helpful. So those will be available in about a week and a half tops. And so we just need to get those out before the ballots are sent out.
And to kind of kick it up a notch, why don't we commission you to bake out a couple dozen of cupcakes, and we'll sell them 1,000 at a pop. Those will be special limited edition cupcakes. One once in a lifetime opportunity.
That is literally on my list because I don't know. There's so many crazy rules governing elections and what you can do to raise money and things like this. And your sign has to say paid for by Karen Hyatt. It's minuscule little micromanaging rules about elections. So I'm going to make sure that it's okay. And if it's okay, I literally want to do a fundraiser, a cupcake and cookie, or cookies and do a fundraiser that way. I think that would be a lot of fun.
If nothing else sticks, I think a nice glass of raw milk from Shane and Kristen,
and a little cupcake from Bake-A-Wish Cupcakes.
And
there you go.
And it's a perfect day. Karen, a message. Do you want to? There's your camera. A message to the people who are listening to this and are here in Utah.
Talk to your friends. Talk to your disillusioned friends and tell them there's a spark of hope. It won't change overnight, but we start somewhere, don't we? So please talk to them. Please share this. Please open up the discussion and give a look to the Constitution every once in a while. Just open it up. It's not so very hard. Just go to Article 1, Section 8, start there, and that'll tell you exactly what the federal government's supposed to be doing. And let's just use that as a template. We don't have to be exactly the same at the state level. We have a little more leeway, but let's use it as a template for limited government and have faith in each other that we can do a lot for ourselves, that we don't need government to step in every time there's a crisis or a problem, and that we can talk to our neighbors and we can solve problems in our neighborhoods by talking, and we don't need to involve authorities every time we turn around. So let's get government shrunk. Let's shrink down government. Let's get the budget under control, and let's get the control back to a local level or an individual level. And please vote for me in the primary before June 30th. And if you're not registered, please get registered to do so. And then please vote for me. Anybody can vote for me in November. So when I'm on the ballot in November, cast your vote for Karen Hyatt. I appreciate it so much.
We're going to leave off with again opening that invitation to candidates and other and incumbents and representatives to start this roundtable, bringing more people from across the the party lines and candidates who are not even in the office yet, and having that conversation to come up with the best ideas that can stand on their own, and then and let that speak and just opening this up. We can change the country from within.
Love it. Thanks, Adrian.
Thank you for watching this episode. And if you like what you hear over here, if you support this, please subscribe and share with your friends. Spread the message. This is how we change things. And even though, like I said in the beginning of this show, I feel like I am apolitical. I don't have that, I don't want to get back into this because I sort of lost faith in it. It's through people like Karen and people that have those characteristics that we should support. And there are people like that out there, clearly. And they are squelched because their voices are not heard. And we are so empowered right now through social media, through technology, that we can do this right now. We spread messages. There are a lot of things going on the internet which catch on fire, and people suddenly know about things. Let's do the same thing for our political system, from local to federal. Let's get those people out there. Let's get them more time, more face time in shows like these, where discussion and discourse is a constructive way, and not this political debate that we have, this circus that happens where we're just submarining each other ideas and fighting as opponents, and again building this division through being these separate camps. So again, I believe that everything can happen from within. If you like this, support it, share it, and until next time, see you later. Apodcast.com. Listen, learn, and share.
Thanks for listening to a podcast with interesting people. If you like this episode, please subscribe and leave a review or comment.
And support us by sharing our episodes on social media. We really appreciate it. And for more information, visit us at apodcast.com. Thanks.
Thank you.